JB Cycles here with update on January the 14th. So as usual, here's my 4-week cycle in black, and recent week we kind of have followed my scenario, but actually we did go all the way up and test the previous high and this doesn't look very bearish. So I'm asking, is this a topping formation or is it a bullish consolidation? We have a 10-week cycle here, and it should make a low somewhere here, and perhaps we already have made the lows, because this doesn't feel like a top. It's more like a bullish consolidation like back here. So we still have two possible scenarios, but I'm starting to switch over to the more bullish one, and I have drawn that one here. Perhaps that was the 10-week cycle low, and we are now in a new 10-week cycle, which should be more like a sideways cycle and ending perhaps a little bit more bearish. So very short term, we see in black the 4-week cycle is approaching a low, so time is running out for bears, and then soon we will have the pop. So let's have a look at some other stuff. Why do I think this? Here's the VIX wavelet. Well, actually this is the VIX wavelet. So we have the VIX in blue and the wavelet in red, and we see the wavelet here, the 10-week wavelet, actually is now suggesting it looks like the VIX has topped and should go down. And if we invert the wavelet, it will fit to the S&P. So VIX going down means the S&P going up. And we see the wavelet has made a low and suggesting VIX should go down, S&P should go up. And if I go to the daily wavelets for the S&P, I had two scenarios here in red and black, and the red one was my main scenario, but I'm starting to switch over to the black one. As we see that this blue wavelet looks like, back here it looks like a nice topping setup, a sell setup, but it really hasn't materialized into anything, and now wavelets are starting to turn up. So I'm beginning to think we have this black wave pattern, and we are around this point, and we should expect a last uptrend and then the bigger correction. So no real correction here, no real correction here, and we need a third major push up before we get the real correction. So let's have a look at some cycles. So this is the 17-week cycle, or the bigger 34-week cycle, and here you see my overall big scenario for this year. A bull market all this year, but around December could be the bull market top. So I expect nothing bearish to happen this year. And in bull markets we don't have many corrections every year, maybe one or two real corrections in a year, and I think we could have a correction around May, June. So this winter and spring should just be minor corrections or pullbacks. So this 17-week cycle, in a previous video I showed how we now are out of phase with this cycle. We had this low that was a late low at this point in the cycle, and the next cycle low was probably around here. Again, you see we are shifted from the ideal low. Here we are shifted from the ideal low, and then we had the late October lows, again shifted from the ideal low, and this out of phase condition can last for up to a couple of years before we get back in phase with the cycle. So the next if we stay shifted by the same amount, that means a low around late February, early March. So too early to look for a real low in this cycle. If we go to the quarterly cycle or the bigger 6-month cycle, we have major lows around March and September. So around March. This one was close to March. This is around March. And then we have the 10-week cycle. And this one, after market being in sync with the cycle for a long time, here we also got out of phase with the cycle. And here we had another shift, but we see this cycle low was at this point in the cycle. The next low also at this mid-cycle low, and we see this low now a week ago also was at this point in the cycle. So perhaps that's the configuration we have, and maybe, well, it can also take a while before the market gets back in phase with this ideal cycle. It probably wants to get back in phase because this probably is some kind of a fundamental cycle, but a market can be out of phase with it for some time before it gets back in phase. So if we shift this 10 weeks, we also get to around late February, early March. So yeah, more and more suggesting we maybe are, market here. Obviously, this correction in the fall, it failed. Bears failed, and we got very oversold, and we got down to the 200-day moving average, which is the perfect buying opportunity in a bull market. And when bears failed, it became obvious that we should test the all-time high, and it should also be obvious we should make a new all-time high, which we still haven't. Well, we have in the Dow Jones Industrial and the Nasdaq, but still not the S&P. So I think the market is only focused on getting this, what happens when we break out to a new all-time high. That should, trap some bears here, and they will get squeezed. So, yeah, I think the market wants to get this pop up to a new real all-time high, and then we could have a correction. I will look at hourly data for the Dow Jones Industrial. We see we have pretty much followed my scenario, but market really doesn't want to go down. No downside. So right now we are in the middle of this 2-week oscillation. It is bearish for the next week, but looking at my wavelets, it doesn't look like any ideal selling setup. So I could see very possible we could squeeze up early in the week and then go down. So mostly just going sideways here. Yeah, I'm not discarding completely the scenario for a correction, say the rest of January into a low, but it more and more looks like this is a sideways bullish consolidation. And if market has held up into the next weekend, also this coming week, if we don't crash down, then my 4-week cycle is coming to the period where market likes to pop up, and I wouldn't like to be bearish there. So downside, I have a bias for downside this coming week, but it looks like overall this is just a sideways consolidation, and after this, completing this sideways consolidation, some kind of dip this coming week, could be a higher low, then we should break out to higher highs. So yeah, I'm not very, very confident in this, but more and more suggest that's the case. So see you in the next one.